My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. I'm only here to even the score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. We down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
What up, Night Nation? It's your boy Roger for an episode that's a day late, but not a dollar short. So this is episode number 109. We are the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, an ESPN analyst and hoops player, an infamous rapper, our resident influencer and IG star, shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports. Remember to like and follow us on YouTube, IG, and check out the 70-plus teams and conferences on the College Huddle and the Big 12 Huddle. So it's going to be an interesting week this week because we moved the show because everybody's schedule got in the way yesterday and everybody isn't here today. So it's just you and I. So if you'd like, please feel free to jump into the comments this week because I could use a friend. That being said, I think it's just because of this Baylor debacle, to be honest with you. You know, what do you say after a week like that? I mean, honestly, what do you say? I just don't know. All I know is that team was not ready coming out of the bye week. They looked like they were sleepwalking in all phases of the game. We had an extra week. Baylor was a beatable on paper team, comparatively speaking, and West Virginia turns around and beats Houston the next week. So, you know, every phase of the game, the kicking game was off this game. The punting game was off this game. We got the running game going in spurts. The passing game was completely out of whack. Defensively, we came out soft in the first quarter and got behind by 14 points. Last week, as you remember, one of the things that I had talked about was that I was expecting us to have a good day if we got out to like a 17-3 or 17-7 or something like that type of lead. Baylor's defense had not held a team below, I think, multiple digits scoring since 1996. Folks, it's 2025. So that should tell you what kind of awful offensive performance this was. And we'll get into the details a little bit more about the stats behind that and everything else, but it really doesn't matter because we're all left with questions. And the questions are this: what do we make of this team? Where do we go from here? How much should we read into this? What happened to them last week? They came off a bye week. They had extra time. You know, Coach Scottfrost, he got into the post game. I watched the post game and then the Houston preview. You know, one of the things he said was they didn't go by the original script. The previous week, the pregame show, he said that we were going to go after Baylor on the ground and that we were going to try to play ball control. Well, that never happened. The defense, you know, unfortunately gave up a touchdown early. Their tight end was phenomenal. Tree or T or whatever his name was. Just a mountain of a man. He's 6'6", 6'7", but built and could catch. And our safeties, our defensive backs, were just no match for him. So he got the ball early and often. He scored their first TD. And we got in a position where we got them in third and longs, etc. But they seemed to come up with amazing catches. Everything that was thrown their way. I mean, one-handed grabs, falling to the ground, picking it up off the turf. You know, they just did that. And our defensive backs weren't in position. They got burnt. They weren't really, they were picking on one or two of the defensive backs and a safety where they knew they had matchups. And as far as the running game was concerned, which they haven't had a whole lot of success, every time we had them backed up, it seemed that they bounced into their line, was patient with their running, and then found a hole, and then was able to move the ball forward. So, this game it was one of those games that was everything went wrong. But the biggest takeaway from this for me is what we've been talking about for the past several weeks, which is we were watching progress. We were seeing this team take steps forward. They were moving the ball quickly. Taven seemed to have found his stride as far as a quarterback was concerned. And in this game, he just looked terrible. One of the things I will say was a part of the text talk. He seemed to have gotten hit and then had I don't know if he had a concussion or what happened, but he looked really, 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 really woozy. And that's not, an excuse for Taven or meant to be, but I was worried about that because he shook his head a few times, didn't seem to know what was going on, and then was slow pretty much the rest of the game. So I don't know if he had like a concussion or what was going on there. But it just, after that, he just seemed like he was completely off. He was throwing behind receivers. Our receivers got hit with at least 3 or 4 drops. They just didn't look ready. They looked slow. They didn't look like they were developing. And this is a team that, one of the underrated things with this game was Baylor literally looked like they wanted to take people's heads off. They were doing all kinds of extracurriculars that they ended up getting flagged for 3 times, I think, for unnecessary roughness. When it comes to that, you looked at our team on the other side, they just didn't look like they had any energy. There was no fierceness. They were not up. They were not excited. They were not anything. There was no energy on that side of the ball. And I don't know why that is. I mean, the team got into Waco about 6:30 the night before. And then we had a 12 o'clock Eastern game, which is a 11 o'clock game for those of us in CST, and that's where they would have been as Central Time Zone. So they went from a short time to that. They need to change something up because it seems like on the road we just aren't. We aren't the same team, and it's always harder to win in hostile environments. But this was a beatable Baylor team. There was nobody there. They were pumping volume in from both sides. One, the music side, and then band. They had the band mic'd up, so it was extremely loud. It just seemed like everybody on Baylor's side of the ball was prepared, was ready, and had a mean streak. And our guys it just didn't seem like they wanted to be there. The defense finally did bow up after they went up. After they went up the first 2 touchdowns, then they finally started getting the rhythm, started stopping them. But they were out on the field too much, 3-and-outs, punts, etc. It just was not a good game, and Baylor always seemed like they got the one little extra thing that they needed to keep moving the ball forward. So it was just a tough game as a Baylor or as a UCF fan. For Baylor fans, I don't even know if they wanted to win that game because they want to get rid of David Aranda. Nobody showed up. Half of them left at halftime. It was raining. We know that Taven Jackson is not good in the rain, historically speaking, but I didn't expect him to be this bad. I mean, it just, I don't know what else to say, but what worries me more is what we're going to do on a go-forward basis, because we saw progress for this team up until this point. So what are they going to do? Are they going to come out flat? We are playing at home. It's the space game coming up. And we're playing a Houston team that just was defeated by West Virginia, the team that we beat the previous weekend. So who's going to show up on Friday night? Well, let's start with looking at some stats. So on first downs, we had 13 first downs to Baylor's 24. Time of possession was about the same. Third down efficiency was absolutely terrible. We were 1 for 11. They were 8 for 17. So again, moving the ball. And then on fourth down, we were 0 for 3 and they were 2 for 3. So what that says is, collectively speaking, on first downs, other than what we got, help with on flags, this team was 1 of 14 on third and fourth downs. You are not going to win any football games on 1 of 14. And the question is, to me, is Scottfrost is that offensive, is known for his offense. He was the offensive coordinator. Now, he did say in his post-game presser that a lot of stuff, they did try to install a lot of new stuff this week. And he said in the previous week, he said that he really doesn't have a system this year because he doesn't have the players, I don't think, to run his system. So basically, it's not a scheme game. They are basically setting those plays up week by week. And what he said was, you saw a lot of mistakes. We saw it with the false starts. We saw it with receivers being out of position, timing being off, Taven taking entirely too long looking down the field. And what Scottfrost said is we have to simplify the offense again. So they did, as we suspected, and we talked about in the bye week, we were expecting them to go ahead and install some new stuff. And they did, and apparently it didn't take. So, and it showed up offensively. Now, we had 225 total yards. This is the same team that was putting up 400 to 500 yards on better defenses. I mean, we were averaging 450 yards. Baylor's defense has been terrible all season. We told you about it last week. There wasn't a team that scored, I think, under 28 points on Baylor all season long. And now you have this 225 yards and 3 points. Passing front, we passed for 151 yards. We were 18 of 33. So again, right around 50% passing, 4.6 yards per attempt. Baylor was 6.7 and 2 interceptions thrown. Again, waited too long for plays to develop, didn't take off with his feet, didn't move up in his pocket, or in the pocket or around the pocket, and then threw into double coverage. So, and one of them he threw away into double coverage that almost turned into a pick as well. This was just not a good game. Only 74 yards of rushing. We didn't even break 100 yards rushing on 23 attempts. Now, Baylor didn't do much better. They had 150 yards on 39 attempts. They averaged 3.8 yards per carry. We averaged 3.2. So again, the defense did its thing. On the yards per attempt for passing, 6.7 yards. That usually means that we have an opportunity to win that game. Baylor did a lot of dink and dunk early on. They had a lot of success with that, but then we started stopping them late. Penalties, 8 for 50. They had 6 for 75. And we had that fumble recovery as well. So it was good to see the ball pop out, went right to our player. They were actually able to recover. We forced fumbles this season, but haven't been able to recover them all season long. So it was good to see that. As far as, their QB, he was 29 of 40, so pretty efficient, 3 TDs. Trig, who's the tight end that I was talking about, 5 receptions, 1 TD. He was a problem for our secondary. He just really was. That we couldn't go on one-on-ones, etc. Malachi Lawrence had a great game, 2 sacks this game, a lot more pressures. But there were situations, where we had John Walker had their quarterback dead to rights. Robertson was really, really good at getting loose and out of bad situations and extending plays. Walker had him dead to rights, had his hands on him. He spun out of it. And normally John Walker is a big enough man that if he gets both hands on you, you're going down. It didn't happen. So it just seemed like everything happened for them and didn't for us. Taven Jackson, as I mentioned, 4.6 yards per attempt. There's a problem there. We didn't have the long shots that we needed to. He was being, he had time. Normally you say a 5-step drop or 3 seconds in the pocket, then you got to have the ball out. He's used to our offensive line so far this season has been pretty good about keeping him upright and giving him time. And by and large, he had time this time. He just didn't have anywhere to throw the ball. The receivers were not getting separation downfield. A couple of them ran wrong routes, and then they dropped passes. Miles Montgomery had 12 carries for 50 yards. We only had 23 carries this entire game. That's unusual for us. The team's average was 3.2. Miles averaged 4.2. Jaden Nixon had 3 carries for 18 yards, Long of 11. So 6 yards per carry, but realistically speaking, he probably evened around 5. Dwayne Thomas Jr. was a bright spot for us. He seems to be fully healthy. We're using him in that style that we're used to seeing from Scottfrost with that scat back. He's lining up in the slot. He's going out there. They're trying to get him in space, and he was able to move. And he was quick. He was showing his speed out there, and he looked like that ankle injury from earlier on this season wasn't slowing him down. And I'm going to keep talking about this, but I'm going to pause for a second. For those of you that are watching, please, I appreciate you. If you want to join the show and have a conversation, please post a comment. It makes it a lot less boring. I'm by myself this week, which is crazy. But we'd appreciate if you have any comments or anything you want to throw in there. In addition to that, the receiving, Dwayne Thomas Jr. led receiving 8 catches for 77 yards. Dylan Wade was also active, 5 catches for 34 yards. We're getting him, now that he's fully back, we're getting him back involved with the offense. That's pretty important. And then the next leading receiver was Miles Montgomery, 2 for 23. Last week, we had 11 different receivers involved in the passing game. This week, we had 6. DJ Black looked terrible again. He got targeted multiple times and just could not complete the catch. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what to say about this offense. It runs through Taven, and Taven was just completely off. On the defensive side, Cole Kozlowski had another great game, 11 total tackles, 5 solos, 1 TFL. Malachi Lawrence had 3 TFLs, 2 sacks. Philip Dunham played pretty well, except for when he was against their tight end, and he was getting picked on by that. Nigel Kelly, they were double teaming him. People were asking where he was. They were double teaming him, which opened up Malachi Lawrence a little bit. So if you guys are wondering why was he not more active on your screen, that's why, and it opened up some opportunities for him. Jaden Bellamy played really, really well. Braden Marshall got picked on a little bit. And again, you've heard me talk about it. Antoine Jackson just has not done well at all. So that's what happened during the game. But let's ask some questions around what we think happens now on a go forward basis. We felt pretty confident going into this game. I felt pretty confident going into this game. You heard my prediction last week. I said 38-17. Had we had any type of offense this game, I think there's a possibility that may have been the case. But we kept putting the defense back on the field. They lasted a pretty long time, and then they just got worn out. Taven Jackson's a big question mark right now. So the question is, we knew why he was playing the way that he was playing before. Mentally, he was just not there this game. As I mentioned earlier, I do think he got his bell rung. And it was early on in the game. I don't know if it was a second series or third series. The guy's bell run, and he just did not look the same. But again, progressions weren't there. Mentally wasn't there quick enough. And when he threw the ball, he didn't see what the defense was doing really well. He didn't read the defense really well. I don't know if he was so worried about putting us in position. One of the problems we had was putting ourselves in position pre-snap. I don't know if he was busy doing that, but he was not reading the defense. It was not anticipating where the defense was going to be. Now, granted, Dave Aranda, was he known as a good defensive coordinator? And by and large, he knows he was coaching for his job. I know he spent time with his defense, and they were going to show multiple defenses, and they did. However, Taven Jackson's got to be able to diagnose that a lot faster. So what does this mean for the rest of the season? Well, Houston's got a fairly good defense. And then we've got some big names, and we've got OSU, right? So as we kind of look ahead a little bit at those teams, we've got Texas Tech that's going to have a good defense. We've got Houston that we're playing as well that has a fairly good defense. And, obviously BYU does. We end the season with BYU. So it's not going to be easier from this point forward. So if I'm Coach Scottfrost, what am I doing with Taven Jackson? Well, one, you don't want to pull his confidence completely, right? I think at this point you have to be a little bit more supportive. However, at the same time, a lot of these mistakes like the false starts and Delay a game. How do you have a delay of game coming after a kickoff? I don't understand how that happened. They've got to be more aware. So Taven Jackson, we're going to ride with him next week. I'm hoping he has a bounce back game. I think he's in his head a little bit. Jakuri is not coming back anytime soon. There is rumors. There you go, TM Housing. I'm with you. There are rumors that Jakuri is redshirting again this year. And then you've got your other backups. Basically, you've got Davy, and that's it. So I know that they're playing a little bit more conservative, so to speak. But he's got to get out of his head a little bit, because I think if he gets knocked down a few times early, I think that makes him think too much when he's going through his progressions. Defensively, what do we think about this defense? The defense has been a strength all season long for us. Let's see what the Night Life 07. Thank you for chiming in. It's getting a little lonely because I'm alone this week. Do we still think we can win the Big 12 with 2 or 3 star players? UCF got straight out classed, and the talent level of Baylor's players was very evident. Here's the thing. These weren't 2 and 3 star players. Our roster's not made up of 2 or 3 star players. Yes, we've got some people that we've had to fill gaps with, and some of them have performed. We've actually done really well with the FCS players that we've pulled up, other than Black. But outside of that, we've done really, really well with those folks. But if you look at our roster, there are 3 and 4 star players is really the question you should be asking. Can we win with 2 or 3 star players as in a la Frost 2016? Probably not. The advantage that we had there was Scottfrost had George O'Leary's. I wish Trey was here. He's actually stuck in surgery. He was supposed to be here tonight with me. George O'Leary's teams, he did a really, really good job of teaching fundamentals. They were tough. They prepared like they weren't in the NFL. They were good in the weight room. They were conditioned well. And from a technique perspective, they were really good. Scottfrost brought in an offense, and he brought in some players that were good offensively. Remember 2016, the O-line was not that great. I actually did an interview recently on another channel. I'll drop it into the comments that talked about us and where I think college football was going. But that 2016 team had some bugs to work out, and specifically on the offensive line. The difference is the scheme was killing them with speed and motion, and to make up for that talent gap. And then we did have some pretty good offensive linemen that came in, Wyatt Miller and a few other people that came from George O'Leary's era. So the short of it is, can we win with 2 and 3 star players? No, we cannot win in the Big 12 with 2 or 3 star players. That's out the window. Can we win with borderline 3 star players with some special guys at 4 stars? Yeah. John Walker's of the world. Look at Nigel Kelly. He was a 5-star. Remember that. A lot of these guys were 3 and 4 stars. So can we win with them? Yes, but it's got to be a system, right? The thing about it is with Scottfrost, and he said this, is he's not running a system this year. And because he's not running a system this year, that means you're not practicing or repping the same things over and over. He's designing a different scheme for each opponent that we're playing. Unfortunately, the defense this week with Baylor, because they allowed 2 early touchdowns, that blew that out of the water. And instead of going run heavy, which Baylor has not been good with, we had to go pass happy because we were trying to catch up, and it showed. That was not going to be our strategy, or that's not what Scottfrost said was going to be the strategy. And he said himself he should have slowed the game down a little bit more. And I agree. We were getting yards on the ground. We would have worn Baylor's defense down. They did not do well all season against the running game, but we chose to air it out, and it just ended up with 3 and outs. I mean, again, 1 and 14, you're not going to win a lot of football games that way. And we didn't win this. Defensively, you said you also got UCF got straight out classed, and the talent level of Baylor's players was very evident. I would say the talent level was consistent or equivalent in most of the positions, but there were some key positions that they weren't. One was the receivers, and in this sense, Trigg, who was their tight end. And the second aspect of that is the quarterback. Their quarterback played a lot better than what ours did. So did we get completely outclassed? I don't think so. Our defense caught up, but they didn't get any help from the offense. None. Zero. So if you take away those two early scores that they spotted them 14 points, right? And I mean, honestly, that late score probably wouldn't have counted, but they would have had less opportunities. And if you take those 14 points away, now you're looking at a 16-3 game if we didn't have those early. We're averaging 20 per game coming into this game. So I don't really think that Baylor outclassed us per se on a personnel perspective, but I think they did in certain positions and certainly certain skill positions. But thank you for that question. Keep them coming or comment. Defense. Let's go back to the defense again. Defensively, once we got past those two early scores, we did fairly well. 68 tackles, 40 solos, 2 sacks, 9 TFLs. There was a lot more pressures. And then we forced a turnover. When you force a turnover and you win the turnover margin, which we didn't because we had 2 interceptions, we've been pretty good about not turning the ball over through the air. You're going, especially in an away game, you're going to lose. So defensively, we did well. It was good to see Jaden McDonald in there, becoming more of a contributor. Derek LeBlanc, I know he hasn't been crazy great, but he's been pretty good. And he was a highly touted recruit that we had, and he seems to be earning his minutes with the 1s and 2s. So pretty good for him. So, defensively, what do I got to say? We got hit early. We had a mismatch with Bellamy versus Trigg. I mean, the guy was a good 6 inches taller than him, so he didn't really even have to jump. The other thing was our tackling was just not as crisp as what we've seen all season long. One of the comments we were making was how good the tackling has been. Not so much right now. If you watch that Baylor game, there were a lot of tackles that were either not missed. There were tackles attempted that guys bounced off of. And that hasn't been happening all season. So relatively speaking, the defense played well enough to win the game, even spotting the 14 points. The offense just was non-existent. You're not going to win football games 3-0. We're not Iowa, right? Iowa can win a game like that. UCF won't, especially not in the Big 12. One positive thing, it seems that we got, although we did get stuffed again, we had a couple of short yardage situations, 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s that we were actually able to get. So that was the first time all season that we've been able to get it, especially on multiple tries. However, again, I'm kind of reaching if that's what the positive notes were here. Really disappointed in Scottfrost and the coaching staff in getting this team ready. They did not look ready from especially after a bye week. They did not look ready to play Baylor. They did not look energized. And Scott was like, oh, this was the most ready they looked all season long. Okay, well, they didn't come out that way. So whatever you're doing, I don't know if you've got to hop them up full of caffeine or do whatever you need to do. Do something, because that was just pitiful. The effort wasn't there. That's one thing we gave this team all season long. We've been talking about culture all season long. Wasn't evident in this game. It just wasn't. This team did not look ready. They did not look like they wanted to be there. They were getting pushed around and quite frankly, bullied. Now, should the refs have stepped in earlier? Probably. Would that have stopped some of that? Maybe. But it was an attitude. And we just didn't have it. We didn't have any attitude, no swagger, nothing. So really disappointed with that. People are asking, how did this happen? Our offense just completely stunk. I mean, they really, 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 really did. So how much of that is on the coaching staff? How much of it is on the players? Some of it's on the players. But I'm sorry, the coaching staff's got to have us better prepared than that, especially off of a bye week. One of the things Scottfrost likes to do is he likes to be a player's coach. So when it comes to accountability, it's more like, hey, I want to support them through this. That works to a point. At some point, when the fundamentals are being missed over and over and over and over and over again, you've got to hold people accountable. We saw what happens when you don't do that with Gus Malzahn. So there's got to be something there where Scottfrost bucks up and starts holding some people accountable. I don't know what that means. Again, coming into the season, the comment that we made, if you've got 3 quarterbacks that could start, that means you've got no quarterbacks that could start or should be starting for this team. Taven Jackson has the tools physically. He seemed like he was moving forward and starting to figure it out. But this game, there's no way he should be anything other than a backup after this game. So we roll with what we've got. I hope Taven turns it around. He's got the tools. He shows it in flashes. I just don't know how we do that consistently. And, I'll ask you guys, what do you think this means for the season? When we think about the rest of our Big 12 schedule, we've now backed ourselves into a corner in the sense of bowl eligibility. The space game is coming up on Friday. We're playing Houston. So what does that mean? Houston is either going to come in pissed off or off kilter, one of the two. It's a short week for both of us. They lost against West Virginia last week. It'll be interesting to see because ESPN has us as the favorite. They have us with over a 60% chance of winning that game. But this week becomes pivotal. If we roll over in the space game, not only does that ruin another record in our perfect space game record so far, but it really sets the stage. If they lose this game, I don't know how competitive Texas Tech is going to be, even without their quarterback, and what happens with OSU. So I really think by and large this team is going to figure it out. They don't seem to give up. And had this game happened this way, and they wouldn't have rolled over, I would have probably been a lot more confident about how that goes with Houston. But right now, I don't know what to make out of this team because I don't know what caused it. We do a lot of analysis here, and there was nothing that I could specifically point to that says this is why it was this way versus the previous weeks. So it does mean that we have to beat Houston at home and we have to beat OSU because we're not beating BYU. And I don't think we're beating Texas Tech, but stranger things have happened. Frost's attitude, I know he's got dealt a raw deal, but his attitude with his players, he's got to get some accountability there. There's only so many weeks in a row you can hear the same thing over and over and over and over again before it turns in the Gus light zone. And so you're basically Gus lit, right? We don't want that. We don't want that. We're not looking for perfection. We are looking for fight from his team. That's what he's all about, culture. And when they roll over, that's not a good thing. I want to go ahead and look at the PFF grades real quick before we start talking about Houston. So this week, we go over these every week. This was our second worst game. This is actually interesting. Offensively, our worst games were Kansas State, which was a 53.3. Then it was Cincinnati, 56.6. And now at Baylor, 55.2. Again, all three of our most recent away games. West Virginia, 72.9 at home, 61.5 versus Kansas. We definitely are a different team on the road. Offensive grades this week. Dwayne Thomas Jr. led with 74. Dylan Wade followed up with 69.3. Then it was Miles Montgomery with 68. Paul Rubelt, again, we talked about him versus Owen Spell. Owen Spell 66 versus Paul Rubelt 59.3. That's about par for the course for him. That's not injury related. So I do think starting Owen Spell is definitely the way to go. Everybody else was pretty terrible. Even Jaden Nixon was only at 53.9. Waden Charles, our freshman running back or wide receiver, and Carl Jenkins Jr., 50.8 and 51.5 respectively. Taven Jackson, 34.2. By far his worst of the season. And that should tell you how poor he played this game. He even, when he wasn't blitzed, he was 40.1. So again, this was just a pretty bad game for him. So, well, as far as the defense is concerned, this wasn't our best game, but was average. So when you look at it defensively, Jacksonville State, we were 69.2. At Kansas State, 67. Kansas, 69.4. Cincinnati, 67.5. West Virginia, 87.4. And then Baylor, 68.9. So again, statistically, this is an above average defense. They came in with a lot of accolades behind them. Malachi Lawrence led the team 85.9. He played lights out. And Cole Kozlowski, people can talk about where he came from, but he was highly recruited before Colgate. Bright kid, and he's come here and done a really, really, really good job at the linebacker position. Jaden McDonald, one of the younger guys on the team, 75.7, but only 11 snaps. Then Philip Dunham, 74. Again, he's done really, really well for us at the safety position. DJ Bell played well. Antoine Jackson played better, 64.5 for him. On the other end of the spectrum, John Walker, 58.2. Guys, he was also being double teamed. But our DTs did not help. RJ Jackson, 54. Rodney Laura, 52. Braden Marshall was terrible. Back to your 2 and 3 star players. Braden Marshall was a 4-star player that we got. 48.3. And the rest of our linebackers, both Lewis Carter and Lawson, Lewis Carter, 58.3, and Kelly Lawson, 45.9. They were doing some really simple things with the offensive line. They were moving the offensive line together and had the running back patiently waiting behind the wall. We did not get enough pressure, especially early and especially in the first half, for the defensive line, which is one of our strengths, to make a difference. So that was tough. So that's really all I have to say about this game. I mean, we need to put it behind us. We've got to forget about it. I really want to see how we react when it comes to Houston. What team is going to show up? Because this was the harder of the game. They were 7-1 going into West Virginia. Now 7-2. So I'm going to go ahead and swiv it here. Since I'm by myself, I'm swimming by myself, I guess. And we'll talk about week 10 versus Houston. Again, it's the space game. So, they were talking about this being a rivalry game and being, hyped up because of Houston's, background with the space program. And then obviously the Kennedy Space Center in Central Florida. And the fact that even within NASA, those two have a rivalry going, but we haven't really heard much about it. We really haven't. I will say this. I did buy, if you guys saw the emails, they had UCF did send out a fundraiser, essentially. Not fundraiser is not the right word, and whatever. A T-shirt that had a glow in the dark logo on the front of it with the knight head that turned into a skeleton. They should have done that earlier instead of selling it like the night before. But I did buy one of those, so I'm excited. I still haven't received it yet here in Santa Rosa Beach. So again, UCF marketing, great idea, terrible execution. That's got to go out before Halloween. You would have had a lot more sales, but still a cool shirt. This is the space game, so I'm excited about that. The uniforms are going to look great. We traditionally do really, really well on the space game. For some reason, ESPN still is very high on us winning this game. That's 60.4% chance of winning. UCF is plus 1.5 on this. So, again, toss-up game according to the odds makers. Houston is coming into the season 7-2. Just kind of looking over their record. Obviously, they started with cupcakes as tune-ups with Stephen F. Austin. They won 27-0. Then they beat Rice 35-9. They beat Colorado early 36-20 for their first conference game. The thing you can't read too much into Colorado because they've turned out to be a pretty poor football team. They won against Oregon State in overtime 27-24, lost to Texas Tech 35-11. Now that is the number 11 team in the country, and they still had their quarterback at the time. Beat Oklahoma State, which we all know is not very good this year, 39-17. Beat Arizona 31-28 in a close one. Arizona has not been good either. And then Arizona State, they beat 24-16. Now that game, you got to kind of circle, right? But if you look at the opponent's scores, 28 points, 17 points, 16 points. Texas Tech was 35 points. 24 points for Oregon State, 20 points for Colorado. Again, low-scoring games for the most part, especially in their wins. So the offense has to do well. The teams with a decent defense, they haven't done great, but they still are averaging 30 points. So it's a little bit of a paper tiger situation because they haven't really played any great defenses, and those that they have, and they've won with decent defenses, which is only really one of these teams, which is Arizona State. They only scored 24 points. So the offense isn't great, but it's not bad either, if that makes any sense. They do have a fairly good defense. They're led by Wagman. He's 148 and 228 on the season, 16 TDs and 4 interceptions. So here's the crazy part about this, right? You look at Taven Jackson again. He's had less games this season, 121 for 191, 5 TDs and 4 interceptions. However, when you look at Houston and their quarterback, he's got 1,890 passing yards versus 1,334 for Jackson. So last week, with one less game, last week we played a quarterback that had over 2,400 yards on the season already. This guy is a running and he's a runner as well as a passer. So, with him, he's pretty good. He's rated at 158.9 versus conference teams. He's actually doing better against conference teams than he was against non-con. That was the same problem that we had, although I don't think Colorado was considered non-con or was considered a conference game because they signed that before they came to play. Nightlife says a space game victory depends on the crowd and vibes. The magic is from within the atmosphere and home field advantage. I agree. We need to have home field advantage this week, guys. Show up for the space game. It's the space game. Come on. Not that anybody's showing up to see Houston, because again, I think they're a little bit of a paper tiger. But in conference, he's 98 of 146, 67% completion percentage, 1,273 yards, 8.7 average. So he can air it out. If you're averaging 8.7, that means you've got a lot of passes that are in that 25 to 35 yard range. He's got 10 TDs and 3 interceptions in conference play. What's interesting, he had 2 turnovers or 2 interceptions against West Virginia. West Virginia is not a good defense. They're an okay defense, but they're not a good defense. They are good at turnovers, and the one thing that they were known for is their defensive backs were grabbing interceptions. So they were able to do that against Houston last game, and it made a difference. He's a 4th-year player. He's averaging 65% completion percentage for the year, and a 16 to 4 TD to interception ratio. And remember, 2 of those interceptions were last week. So really, that would have been a 16 to 1 ratio had it not been for those 2 things. So this guy's a good quarterback. He's a tough quarterback. When a play breaks down, he will move around the pocket to try to get loose. He's tough to get down. So we're going to have our hands full because, again, this is going to be another one of those quarterbacks that we're going to have to, be really, really, really good at staying in our lane, making sure that we're applying pressure and getting where we need to go. As far as rushing yards, their leading rusher is Connors. He's got 148 carries for 4 TDs on 657 yards. He's averaging about 5.5 per carry in November and 4.1 in conference play. So he's pretty good. They've got another running back that is more of their ground and pounder. He's got a little just shy of 400 yards rushing. So he's there. Their leading wide receiver is Thomas. He's got 40 receptions for 7 TDs, 634 yards. Again, his average yards is 16.2 in conference. So he's going to be the long ball threat. If the ball's going deep, it's going to be going to him. So make sure you're keeping eye on him. He does have some speed on him, but I think our number 1 and number 2 defensive backs can, we'll be able to cover him up. Walls the third, he's a defensive lineman. He's got 5.5 sacks in the season. They will try to get pressure on us, and they have a pretty good linebacker with 58 tackles named Garner. So again, they match up pretty well defensively. This game, realistically speaking, is going to be up to the offense, as it has been all season long. I think our defense will be able to play well against them. They're going to be challenged by the quarterback. I think he's kind of like Sorsby was, or kind of like, I can't remember quarterback from last week for Baylor, but he's going to be tough to bring down. And so we're going to have to tackle much better than we did last week. We are at home. It is a night game. We tend to play better at night and at home, obviously, in the space game. So I'm hoping that the defense comes to the game and plays a lot better as far as tackling and making sure we're controlling their quarterback as possible. Our DBs do stack up well as far as size is concerned against Houston for the most part. So I'm not as concerned about that, and they don't spread the ball around as much. So as long as our top DBs can stay with their receivers, I think we'll be okay from that perspective. But to me, this game this week is going to be, does the offense show up? And the offense that does show up, how do they show up? Is it going to be the West Virginia offense that that finds open receivers? I like that we're using Thomas. We had a lot of success early with that. Of some of the stuff that we saw from him out of the slot reminded me of that 2016, 2017 offense. So I'm hoping we get to see a little bit more out of that. As far as the running game is concerned, they've got a pretty stout defensive line. So we should be able to run if we go outside the tackle. So I'm hoping we're not going up the gut again. But again, it's going to be, can we pass the ball or not? We can't get behind like we did early. I don't think we have to worry about that. Houston doesn't really score very much against. They're going to average 20 to 24 points, somewhere around there. Probably more like 24 points against a competent defense. And I think we have above average defense. And because of that, I think we can hover around 20 points. It's just a question of whether the offense is going to show up or not. So that being said, as we think about Houston, I think the keys to the game is going to be, defense needs to show up and show out and stop them early. And our offense needs to wake them up and come out firing. Frost said he's going to simplify the offense, which I think will help. These guys are still somewhat lost, or more lost than I would expect them to be at this point in the season. Yes, they were thrown together. Yes, they're learning a new system. Yes, we've got Frost in there. But a lot of these guys had some experience coming out of the transfer portal, and they should have been able to execute a little bit better. I expect us to use Wade. I expect us to use Dwayne Thomas Jr. Quite a bit. And I expect us to see a heavy dose of the running game early. Unless if we give up the first possession to Houston, and we get a defensive stop, I expect us to try to take the top off of it early to get the defense to kind of loosen up. I don't know what kind of shape Taven's in after seeing that last game. I really do think he might have had a concussion, or a slight one, or at least got his bell rung, as we used to call it back in my football days, because he was out of sorts. So hopefully he's recovered from whatever that was. And we'll go ahead and get the predictions this week. So Nightlife, TM Housing, both of you, if you guys want to throw your predictions in there, because I don't have them for the rest of the guys just yet. We'll fill those in a little bit later. With regard to this game, the over-under is over-under. Let's see. The under, it's 47.5 points. So they're expecting a low-scoring game. If UCF wins this game, I'm expecting and I would be a lot more confident about this had it not been for Baylor last week, and that's why I said if. I'm going to say it's going to be 28-24 UCF this week. That's going to be my score prediction. Just simply because I do think the defense will be able to hold them. It's just a question of whether the offense shows up this week or not. So if they do, 28-24 UCF. All right, let's go ahead and swiv it again. This is a lot less fun when I'm saying it myself and hearing myself repeat it. To some other UCF news. Okay, here we go. Score predictions. We've got Nightlife 07 chimes in. 24-20 UCF. The Nightlife 07. Forgot the B. Sorry, man. Didn't want to get in trouble by the Ohio State or something like that. I don't know. But I've got you in here, so we'll check in next week and see how you did. TM Housing, if you want to throw yours in there, I'll go ahead and put that up there too. But since we've swiveted to other UCF news while you're thinking about it, I want to talk about TikTok Terry Mohajir. He gave a rambling interview. He hasn't had a whole lot of media availability, but before the Baylor game, he had this media scrum. If you haven't watched the video, I'd encourage you to go watch it, where he was talking to a bunch of Baylor media before the football game. The Baylor media, there was obviously UCF media there too. And he talked about a lot of different things. And the theme that I keep hearing from him is that they've been reactionary. Whether he was talking about NIL, whether he was talking about any of the rev share stuff, any of that kind of stuff, it's all been reactionary. Meanwhile, the messaging he put out, especially when he shut down the kingdom, was that they were trying to be proactive. Well, I hate to say this, but even if you are reactive, you don't go out and into the media and say that. You talk about the things you were doing or that you are doing to attenuate some of the problems. And this goes back to my problem with Terry and his ability to lead our program. It's just small town. He's not a CEO. I've said this before. There were, again, this, take it with a grain of salt, this is secondhand, but someone that I know really, really well, his friend negotiated with UCF on something for his business and just described Terry as amateur hour when he was doing that. He's got to do a better job of talking about what they are doing or what they have been doing, especially when he gets out in front of the media. He's talked about some of the positions that they've hired, which was great. He talked about some of the enhancements that we were making in the stadium. We talked about those last week, which is also great. And it's great for facilities, but facilities doesn't win football games in today's environment. So the areas where he said he was being reactive, even if he meant just because we had to, because we didn't have the same funds, because we were behind the 8 ball as far as our funding because we weren't getting full shares, then say that. Don't say that you're reactive. This is a man that part of the reason he came here and was hired here was because he was part of the football committee. He was at Arkansas State again. Terry Mahajer was the AD when we played that game in 2016 in the Cure Bowl and lost. He had Arkansas State playing pretty well. He kept losing head coaches, so he had hiring. He made some pretty good hires while he was there in Arkansas State. He's done nothing on the hiring front here. And the other thing is, I know there's budgetary constraints, but and I hope Johnny does well. But there's a reason Duke had him do his exhibition game on national TV. I think this is his retirement tour, and for a reason. So again, I'd encourage you to go watch the interview. It just didn't impress me much. Not the leader of an organization with $120 million budget, with as much media that's out there, with that represents a brand like ours. Just not confident in the decision making as far as Terry is concerned. And just, realistically speaking, we got another email that came out to season ticket holders or to non-season ticket holders offering 2 free tickets for the game. Remember, we're supposed to have a wait list, right? So if you put a deposit down, you were going to get 2 tickets to football games. Now tell me how we have a wait list, but we have the ability to offer 2 free tickets. Now, maybe I'll say this way. It might have been an opportunity. It may be tickets, who knows, that were returned by our visitors, Houston, and OSU, from traveling fans. So maybe they offered that if I was giving them a benefit of the doubt, but it's just not really, it's not good optics. You're at it. One, if you've got a wait list while you're soliciting for people to buy season tickets this season for next season. And then 2, why are you offering free tickets to get someone to get on a wait list for next season if you've got a sold out stadium? They don't. Not like that. And the optics and the way that's especially earlier in the year before the season when they sent all those emails out, and I've been pretty vocal about this, you alienated a lot of season ticket holders that were buying those tickets and then either reselling or giving them away after the during the season to other UCF fans. And the prices weren't any higher than what they would have paid. They were losing money for the most part, I think, on every single one of those transactions. Having been a season ticket holder in the Cabana, understanding what the commitment is as far as the ticket price itself plus the donation. If you're doing that that means you don't have them sold, and at the very least, you're giving up the donation. So it's just the awareness is just not there. The leadership is just not there. The execution is just not there. It's just, and again, we don't want to look at him versus Danny White. Danny White was great. He was a great brand guy, etc. But he's just not there. He's not on the business acumen. He's not on the execution. He's not good at understanding the brand. He's not connecting with the fan base well. He makes, his departments trip over themselves trying to make different things happen, and nothing so far has ended up well. TM Housing, I know I'm going to get off my Terry rant now. Do you think we can muster up some space game magic and keep the streak going? Actually, what is the likelihood it happens? Well, according to ESPN, it's 60% chance. So better than even odds that we end up winning this game. Again, like, I'm going to pick UCF to win, in spite of what they showed last week. If this team comes out flat like they did, oh, it's Trey. So Trey, you're on here commenting, but you can't be on the show with me right now. Nightlife, I want you to take him out back and show him what for. Good luck though. He's a pretty strong dude still. I don't know, man. I honestly think I honestly think that we can do it. It just depends. We just can't come out flat. If we come out flat, if the offense comes out anything like what we did against Baylor, it's going to be over quickly. I don't know why TM Housing is popping up either, but you still owe me a score prediction, so make sure you get that in there. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and review the Big 12 and see what happened in our home conference. So, this past week, obviously, we had Baylor beating us 30-3. Texas Tech still beat Kansas State 43-20. They are now 8-1, which does not bode well for us. It's this, in spite of the fact that their quarterback went out with an ACL in the game prior to this. They still put up 43 on K-State and won 43-20. So that does not bode well for us. Cincinnati was throttled by by Utah. This was again a second week with a game day game, which is good for the Big 12 as far as exposure and quality of football. Utah was actually ranked 24th, but Utah has a really good defense. And when Cincinnati played against us, I was not all that impressed. Trey, are you saying Houston or UCF? Because if you're saying Houston, I may just kick you off the stream. Anyway, this Utah team is a really good fundamental team. I'm surprised they had 45 points, but again, their defense caused turnovers. Anytime you get turnovers, you're going to win games. Houston lost 45-35 to West Virginia. I don't know where West Virginia found an offense. Fox really came through for them. Arizona State beat Iowa State, who's now 5-4. They lost to Arizona State 24-19. Kansas beat Oklahoma State 38-21. And lastly, Arizona took it to Colorado, whose woes continue, 52-17. So as far as the standings are concerned, we really haven't moved. We've gotten a little bit closer to Iowa State, who's now 2-4 in the conference, which is crazy from where they started. Now, they lost a lot of their players, especially on the defense early on, but we're still tied for 13th place. The big thing for us that stands out, there's only one team that has scored less points than UCF this year. The Oklahoma State Cowboys, which is crazy to me. Now, defensively, we would be... So Texas Tech has 84 allowed. Utah has 103. BYU has 120 allowed. And then it would be us at 124. So we're the number 4th ranked defense in points allowed this season. So again, defense wins championships, but you got to have more than 3 points. Let's just put it that way. Okay, that wraps up the Big 12 for this week. Yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and swiv it yet again to our listener love section. So Trey, I'm going to hide you. And this week, really active again, Econ Advisor. Econ Advisor was tearing it up. He was talking about the basketball game. 45-minute late start is so absurd. They should start women's game an hour earlier. No other university does this and really hurts attendance, especially on a weeknight. 8 p.m. is already a late start, all to save money, play on separate days. I agree. I did love the fact that we were on ESPN for this game against Hofstra, and we'll talk a little bit about the hoops game and what to expect in our next conference opponent and what we saw. But there's no excuse for starting a basketball game on a Monday night at 8:45 p.m. There's just none. And it was advertised for 8. That's just poor planning. Again, an example of what I'm talking about from TikTok Terry. Season opener after 2 grueling exhibition games versus Duke and LSU, put up great fights in both, taking LSU down to the final minutes. That LSU game we should have won. We were in it all the way. We were leading it. We just never felt like we were willing to take the win. We had a lot more ball movement this week. We had it early in that LSU game and just disappeared late. We had the lead going down to the last 4 or 5 minutes, and then this team just kind of imploded and started shooting up threes and missing a heck of a lot of threes. Econ Advisor talks about Baylor here. He says, stop their mediocre run game opens up Baylor's explosive offensive passing game. UCF must score 30 to win. Actually, this week we had to score 31. But point taken. Econ also says first year these schools are getting a full share of Big 12 revenue. More importantly, why did now this is a good point, all but one legacy school have disappointing years? UCF is outperforming forecasts, especially defensively, if UCF fans who've been less than loyal. Okay, so this brings up something else. A couple things, actually. One, yes, it's good that the schools that are not legacy schools, or the leftover 8, or the hateful 8, or whatever you want to call them, are leading in BYU, Cincinnati, and Houston, and doing really, really well this year. That's great. Not so great for us right now. We're in the middle of rebuilding. But it speaks to the fact that this conference is open year after year, and this is exactly what you wanted. You've got a conference that you have access to the playoff. You've got a conference that anybody can win in a year. So this is good for UCF. We just have to start winning and doing it consistently. As far as the loyalty of the fans, so this is a discussion I was having earlier this weekend about the loyalty of the fans, how that's changed. So I look at it as there's 5 different spokes of a football program right now. You've got the average fan, you've got the donor, you've got the head coach, you've got the players, and you've got the administration. Right now, you've got 2 that I think that 2 of those 5 that are fully vested, and that's the fans and the donors. When it comes to the players, it's all about a paycheck. When it comes to the head coaches, they're getting paid more, but that's also because the need to win has caused a lot of coaches in the coaching carousel to accelerate. You look at this year, how many P4 head coaching jobs are open before the season's even over, or even close to being over. That process has accelerated, and you're going to have to offset that. But that also means those coaches, if they're cycling through faster, they don't have as much commitment or interaction or anything else. It's a business, folks. It's about money. I actually talked about how college football has changed on the podcast that I'll leave in the comments when it gets posted on YouTube. And we had a long conversation about that and what's different. But nothing is set up for that. Even the admins, they're trying to move around. So there's nothing set there for loyalty. You don't have the connection. You don't have the fan days. You have an hour where you're walking around, the arena and having people sign stuff. There's not as much access anymore. And again, you've got the average quarterback making in between 1.3 and 1.8 million dollars in the Big 12. You're not going to have a lot of quarterbacks that are going to be out there that are making that kind of money that are going to have a whole lot of fan access, but it has become a business. So when you talk about fans and loyalty, Econ Advisor, I agree. There's core fan bases that are going to do it for the name on the jersey, but the players don't anymore. The coaches don't anymore. NIL, they keep asking for money plus rev share plus everything else. It's becoming more expensive. It's all on the average fan and the donors. So again, what does that mean for the sport and what does that mean for fan loyalty? That means when you put a piss poor product on the field, people are going to start voting with their wallets. And that means they're not going to show up. That equates to empty seats. Then you've got teams like Houston, who are 7-1. And if we want to talk about that, they were 7-1 last week against West Virginia. They have a 45,000 seat stadium, so just a little bit more capacity than ours right now. Brand new not brand new, but relatively new TDECU Stadium, formerly known as, which was funny when they were in the AAC. But it was 3/4 empty. So when you're talking about fan loyalty, winning isn't everything, but it's a big thing. And when you're talking about UCF fans in general, and Econ, this isn't anything against you, the fan base by and large is still fairly loyal because we're not putting a good football product out there consistently. And we still have way better attendance than Houston, or that's at 7-1, or a lot of other teams. San Diego State's another example. Now, again, they're G6 now, so not as good an example. Houston's a better example. But the fans are relatively loyal. Still got a decent turnout. It's not like it's half empty. We're a little finicky with all the rain that we had, etc. But again, the fan base is staying loyal. Is the program staying loyal to the fan base? Is the bigger question that I would ask on that. I'm not sure that that's the case. All right. Especially with this admin in place. Baylor podcasters simultaneously are pretty sure they'll win and yet want their coach fired. Yep. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Okay. So we don't have an oxymoronic stat of the week this week. We don't have a Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week, but we do have basketball and college hoops to talk about. So UCF kicked off their official season 1-0 after playing Hofstra this week. Yes, Hofstra was our first game of the season. So when we look at the stats, the thing that jumps out to me is very, very early on, especially the first half. We shot against Duke. We shot really well from the charity stripe. We just didn't get very many opportunities relative to Duke. LSU, we did okay. This week, I think we were 5 of 13 to start the first half, which is terrible. It was abjectly terrible. And we ended up 22 and 36, which is still a 61%. Really, a decent team is shooting anywhere from 75 to 80% from the charity stripe. And we did a lot better in the second half. We got the benefit of some extra free throws with the craziness that ensued with the technical fouls that were there. Just really, really terrible there. On the rebounds, 16 offensive rebounds to their 13, 24 defensive versus their 18. 16 assists. Folks has been averaging 6 assists per game coming to UCF, and he showed that as well. The only thing that I'm concerned about with Folks, he has the ability to show some great passes. He, towards the end of the game, actually drove the paint and made people either swat him or not. The challenge with him is when he drives the paint, his instinct is to do a couple of things. One is to go baseline, which is never good, right? When you're trying to drive the paint. And then secondarily, he passes the ball a lot. So people are going to expect him to pass the ball. You're going to have pretty passes like behind the back pass that he showed. You're going to have those kinds of things. But if you aren't consistently a threat in the paint or to pick up fouls, that's a problem as a point guard. So I'm glad he showed a little bit of that later in the second half, and he actually contributed a lot of points there because we had some foul trouble of our own. We got Hofstra in foul trouble. They actually played really, really well, comparatively speaking. Their point guard was good. They shot 41.9%. We shot 46.4. They were 5 from 22 from behind the three-point line. We were 8 of 20 behind the arc. So Pacheco is back. We talked about him earlier in the season. He was injured. Again, he is a sharpshooter. That's why he's playing for UCF. This was his first game at a Power 4 team. This was the first game in a UCF uniform, and he just couldn't get it going behind the arc. But shooting 40% is good for us, and it was really the difference. Had we shot better from behind the charity stripe in the first half, this win would have been a lot different. However, we also got 3 of their bigs out towards the end of the game, which makes me a little concerned. Stillwell has been doing good in the paint. I know that Johnny Dawkins is still playing with the lineups, but Bowl, Ben and I were talking about Bowl during the game. A couple of things that I worry about with Bowl is he brings the ball down constantly. There's a couple plays where he did good. His hands are soft. He's not very coordinated. So there's a lot of times he's dropping the ball when he catches a rebound. And defensively, he's a step behind. So again, young guy, but he's not ready for prime time, which is a little concerning. Stillwell played excellent. We got the pick and roll. We've been trying to do the pick and roll game all season long. He and Folks came from the same squad where they did that really, really successfully at Milwaukee, and they got the pick and roll game down. Folks still hasn't got that down with anybody else. Burks came in and played a lot better in the second half, so it was good to see him going. So I like what I'm seeing from Stillwell. He's not going to give you a ton of points, but he's going to be a good defensive presence. He was absolutely relentless. He's good on the boards. He's a good high energy effort guy. Burks looked good. Folks, I'm a little worried. Kugel, he's a guy who can slash into the paint and get either points or fouls for you. He's not the bowling ball that BJ and DJ were late in the game, but he is somebody who can either get you points or get you at the charity stripe. So it'll be fun to watch him develop. Let's see here. Fast points or fast break points, we had 14, and points in the paint, we had 30. We actually had less points in the paint than what Hofstra did. Case in point about Bowl. And I went back and watched the game. Even the announcer said this. There is a point where there's a 6'1" guard who is boxing out Bowl on a rebound. He's got to get some strength. He's got to get lower, and he's got to box out better. So that's something we absolutely have to get better at. Two technical fouls for both teams this game, and 9 is the largest lead for both teams as well. So what's the takeaway? If this is how we're playing against Hofstra, we've got a long way to go. A long way to go. This team plays good for 3/4 for 3/4 of a basketball game, but we've got a lot of work to do on the rebounding, and we've got a lot of work to do on the paint. Now, again, this team was kind of thrown together, so I get it. But at the same time, when I'm watching them, when they make the extra pass, they do well. We have a tendency to stay behind the arc a little too often. We do have a pick and roll game, which is awesome. We've been trying that for a couple of years, haven't really been successful with it. I do like some of the sets. We were talking about sets before, and I know Johnny's still playing with lineups, but some of the sets that I saw this game were solid. I like that we're slashing in the paint. We've got cutters in the back. So there's a lot of positive to be seen here. I don't see this team yet being any better than last year in the Big 12 yet. I got to see them play a little bit more cohesive. That being said, we have Vanderbilt coming to town, or built coming to town. They are 1-0. We're going to be playing them this Saturday. Their points per game, they've had one game for the average is 105. So this team can score. Their defense is fairly good, comparatively speaking. Now, again, we're talking about Lipscomb as their opponent, which is a local in town team. Lipscomb University is right by Vanderbilt's campus. Field goal percentage, they shot 56% against Lipscomb. We shot 46% last game. Rebounds, 37. Assists, 23 versus our 16. So again, not a whole lot to read, but they did have active hands. They had 13 steals. Yes, that's 13 steals per game is what they're averaging. So expect good defense, especially with the team that's holding teams to 61. Expect active hands. They are playing at our house, so hopefully if they are fouling to get to that, we'll be able to see that. But again, it'll be enjoyable to watch some more UCF basketball this Saturday. So I'm hoping they grow into it. There are some times where you're seeing potential, and there's sometimes that it's just terrible. So let's go ahead, and since we're talking about basketball, let's go ahead and talk about do a quick check-in with women's hoops. They will be playing at home on the 9th at 2 p.m. They kicked off the season with a win against Edward Waters, which was an exhibition game, and then 66-55. And then they played Bethune-Cookman as their first official game, 75-36. Wow. Meanwhile, the men's team for Bethune-Cookman was giving Auburn everything that they could handle and took them into OT. I don't know. There's been a lot of turnover on the UCF women's roster this year. Our two leading scorers from last year were not with the team anymore. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But they I don't know a ton about them just yet. So let's, I guess, go ahead and have Trey tune out and get to the quick update on other UCF sports that Alan and Trey do not watch, and maybe Andrew either. So women's soccer, big match. We were trying to get Coach Tiff onto the podcast, and she had agreed to, depending on the outcome of what happened last night. So they were playing last night. I actually got to watch the second half of that game. They were in the quarterfinal for the Big 12 tournament. They were playing number 11 Colorado. They did end up losing the match 2-3. They had beaten Colorado last year, didn't have any scores on them last year. Colorado is a really, really good team, really, really good scoring team, had the number 2 scorer on in the country on their team. And then we came out firing 2-0, as they would say. And we're up at the half 2-0. The first 15 minutes, though, we looked lackadaisical. We were missing passes. The defense was out of position. We were playing a defensive style. So for the first 15 minutes, Colorado was pretty much on our half of the pitch the entire time, which doesn't bode well against a team that has a lot of really, really good scorers. And so Colorado scored. Our goalkeeper has been really good all season long. They were great against Texas Tech. Ended up in a 0-0 match last week. Number 15, Texas Tech, by the way. The Big 12 is a good women's soccer league. And then just kind of fell apart. In the first 15 minutes, I think 20 minutes in, within 20 minutes of the second half, they had scored Colorado had scored 3 goals, which in soccer, that's tough. That's tough to overcome. The ladies did tighten up after that and ended the match 3-2. They are still, I do still think this is a tournament team, so they'll end up making it to the tournament, but their regular conference season is over. Men's soccer, on the other hand, have continued their winning ways. They are now 7-5-3 after a pretty bad start to start this season. And on Friday on Halloween, they did win against Coastal Carolina 3-1. Again, we're in the Sun Belt Conference here. The teams here, you may think, okay, Coastal Carolina, but Coastal Carolina typically has a really good soccer team. So does JMU and ODU, et cetera. We've got teams like South Carolina, West Virginia, Kentucky in this league as well. Pretty decent league, even though it's Sun Belt Conference. They will be starting their tournament, their championship tournament against TBD. So we don't know who we do. They're going to be playing number 17 Marshall. Actually, they should be playing right now. And then hopefully on the 9th, they'll be playing again. So what we're going to do is, while we're live on the air, since I don't have any help this week, men's soccer score. Let's see here. And the final was 2-0 or 2-0 Marshall. So unfortunately, that ends the season for UCF men's soccer, as they will not be advancing and they will not be going to the tournament. Next on the list, let's go ahead and talk about UCF women's volleyball. Again, interesting season for women's volleyball this year. Saw a lot of really, really good signs of life. They are 13-9 overall. I expect this team, they should earn an NCAA tournament bid as well as an at-large. Pretty good league for volleyball as well. They are going to be playing Houston next, which is the Space Game match at home at the venue at 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. They did lose to Utah 3-0, which is pretty disappointing. They were at Utah. They after winning versus number 17 or at number 17 BYU. BYU has a really, really good women's volleyball program, and it's a very tough environment to play in. They win in they have a huge arena that they play in. I mean, it seats like 10-12,000. UCF's venue gets pretty rowdy, but it's nothing compared to BYU. So it'll be that was a great win. It was they had a couple players, BYU had a couple players out, but it's still a good win. And they did beat Houston earlier on, so we'll be playing them at 6 p.m. On Thursday. And then Saturday, we have another match against number 24 Iowa State, which is senior night at 1 p.m. Eastern. So again, notice a lot of ranked teams that we're talking about here. So go out and watch a match. Really, really good team. All right. I'm going to end it on that. You've heard me talk for an hour and 30 minutes straight, which is crazy. I like to talk, and I like to talk UCF sports, and I like to talk it with you. So thank you guys for participating and sending in comments to be part of the conversation. It was a little lonely this week. Here's where I'm gonna leave this. I think this week is going to, against Houston again, is another opportunity for us, right? It's an opportunity for us to seal up the bowl game, and the opportunity for Scottfrost to really put a quiet the naysayers and really build momentum for next year. Houston's got a great QB. I think we've got a pretty good defense. The question is going to be the same thing as it was last week. What offense are we going to get? So Scottfrost, keep it simple, keep it stupid, keep it things that we can execute on, and keep it scoring. Have a great week this week, everyone. Like, subscribe, follow. Thank you for the support. Please make sure you're chatting. Get other people to subscribe, because if we do, we're going to cut Alan's hair. And make sure you check out the video where I talked about UCF, our background, and where I think college sports is headed in the comments below. Thank you so much. Go Knights and charge on, baby. This is, I guess, where I talk randomly for Josh since he's not here. I don't know. Hope you feel better, bro.